The fifth question will go first to Mr. Blevins, also from the audience. What role do you think quality education plays in creating jobs in Ohio, and how should it be funded?
I would like to see schools, the responsibility of education shifted back to the states, to where they can make their decisions, and better yet, communities. I think they should set the standards for what children learn. As far as job creation in that field, I think that a voucher system would allow for competition, and competition would allow schools to not only hire more teachers, but the better teachers out there, and get the better tools and equipment necessary to better educate our children. So I am a supporter of the school voucher system. I believe that wherever the child goes, the money should follow.
Thank you, Mr. Blevins. Congressman Bocheri.
Well, I think quality education is extremely important. We need a well-educated, trained workforce that can critically think, multitask, problem solve. We're competing against countries that are dumping huge amounts of money into their education system. That responsibility is shared between our local, state, and federal governments to make sure that we have access to the most up-to-date and most technologically advanced education system. That being said, we don't discriminate against anybody in this country. Regardless of your socioeconomic standing, you have the opportunity to become anything you want in America. And that's what makes our country so great. Both my parents were teachers. They believed in this system. They gave their heart and soul. To them, it was a vocation and not a career, because the pay was never that great. But I'll tell you this much. A country that makes these right investments, government spending, investing in our workforce, investing in our children, investing in their futures, our country's going to be stronger if we continue to do this. But I'll tell you that education is not only what we need to make investments in. Creating this public-private partnership like we see with Buy Ohio is extremely important. Ohio ranks 10th now in the nation with research and development. We have engineers, we have entrepreneurs, we have innovators that are creating the jobs of the future. Remember, I told you earlier that 7 of 10 jobs didn't exist 10 years ago, a decade ago, and that folks who are creating this type of investment are creating our future. And I'll tell you that I invested and worked closely with Congressman Chris Lee from Buffalo, New York. We both sponsored this. He's a Republican, but we reached across the aisle because we believed this was important for the country. Making permanent research and development tax credits and actually giving a benefit to those communities and companies that manufacture their goods here in America. Believing, both Democrats and Republicans, that when we build it, grow it, and manufacture and assemble it here in America, our country is always stronger. And that starts with a well-educated, trained workforce that can critically think, multitask, and problem solve.
Thank you. Mr. Renacci.
Well, there's no doubt that I believe quality education is important. We need to have trained personnel, we need to have a quality workforce, and we need to have strong education. But I also believe that education needs to be moved back to the local level. States and local government need to be the ones who understand what is being taught in our schools and how we're teaching our children. I believe this is something you can't do from far away. You can't do from Washington, D.C., but you can do locally, right here, whether it's in Wooster, Wadsworth, Canton, Ohio. They're the ones that know what's going on in our school systems. They're the ones that should make those decisions. I believe education should be pushed back to the local level as much as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Renacci. Our next question is also from the audience, and we'll begin with Congressman Bocheri. The question is, do you support or oppose estate taxes?
Well, there's a ticking time bomb in the estate tax law right now. The previous administration set up a sliding scale of which it will jump next year up to 55% with only $1 million in exemption. I helped pass a bill out of the House of Representatives that's in the Senate right now that would make it at 2009 levels and provide an added exemption for $7 million. So that small businesses and farmers who want to pass on their business to their loved ones have a degree of certainty that there is going to be a guaranteed value and rate at which they can plan for their futures. Unfortunately, we need the Senate to work on that. We've heard a lot about debts. Well, folks, the way we shrink our federal deficit is by getting our economy growing again. put people back to work so that they can pay taxes instead of collecting an unemployment check. And when we do this, we're going to find that we need a system that makes sure we reward middle-class Americans. I have heard this issue about certainty. Where's the degree of certainty? Well, you can take this to the bank. It's certain that middle-class Americans, the shrinking middle class, are going to get a tax break. You can take this to the bank with certainty that small businesses are getting tax breaks with net operating loss carryback, with depreciation, with making sure that they have, when they produce energy efficient windows and doors and their structures are energy efficient, they're getting tax breaks for that. There has been quite a bit done so that we can make sure our businesses can grow. What has created this uncertainty, in my opinion, is all these big special interest groups, the big corporations that run around and feed all these lies and fears about what health care means to middle-class Americans, like the Hawkins family and like Jack Hillier here from Wooster, creating all this uncertainty and misconception of ideas on what this means. We're creating a national energy policy that moves away from our dependence on foreign oil and create jobs here that can't be outsourced. That's where the uncertainty is being derived.
Thank you. Mr. Renacci.
Well, I can tell you that I stand here this evening with the Farm Bureau and with small business, and I stand here supporting a 100% repeal of the estate or death tax, as you would call it. We cannot continue down a path where farmers in this community live their whole life, pay all their taxes, and then when they die, they have to worry about how that property moves to the next generation because the federal government steps in, and as you heard, your congressman has agreed that and does support that. We need to permanently repeal that estate tax. Small business owners, they work their whole life. They build a business. They pay taxes. And then what happens? They die, and then the government takes anywhere from 45 to 55%. We need to repeal that so that small businesses, family farms can continue to take the dollars they've earned over their lifetime and move those on to the next generation so farms can continue to survive. Farms don't have to be split, which I've seen that in Wadsworth. I've seen that in our district. They have to split off their farms because they have to pay the estate tax. We need to be able to stand here together and make sure that we repeal that death tax.
Thank you, Mr. Renacci. Mr. Blevins.
I oppose the estate tax wholeheartedly, and I believe we do need to repeal the estate tax for much of the same reason Mr. Renacci stated. One works hard their entire life. They build a nest egg, and then our government taxes them for dying. This is amazing to me. We live in a nation where you can build and create wealth, and then because you pass away, our government can come in and take that from your family. It's a death tax. And now with the recent health care legislation, we have a birth tax placed on our children as well. I'm just dumbfounded by some of the legislation that's coming out of D.C. They're getting us as we come and go now. So I oppose the estate tax wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Mr. Blevins. And we appreciate the silence of the audience that has been so prevalent until now. Our next question is a return to coalition questions. Mr. Renacci will be the first to respond. And the question is, what are your plans to stimulate economic development in this region, and can those plans be accomplished without increasing the national debt?
Absolutely. I believe what we need to do, and we've talked about this already a little bit, if you're going to stimulate the economy, you need to bring jobs back. If you're going to get jobs here, you need to be able to give the small business owner who produces 67% of those jobs the opportunity to employ people. You have to give them the opportunity to understand that it's okay to risk their capital to move forward. Today, we're not giving the small business owner that opportunity. 67% of the small business owners, we are not giving them that opportunity. And where are we falling short by not giving them that opportunity? Well, think about it. We've talked about some of these things already. Obamacare. If Obamacare is taking 28% to 69% of your dollars, are you really going to have the certainty and predictability to be able to hire more people? We talked about taxes. If you don't know what your taxes are next year, you're not going to hire anybody. We talked about cap and trade, which again, my opponent, Mr. Bocheri, supports. If you don't know what your utility costs are, how are you going to employ people? I can tell you this, that if we bring employment back and we get the revenue growing, we can have the dollars to bring down the deficit, but we have to do it by bringing the economy strong, making the economy stronger, bringing employment back, giving small business owners the opportunity with certainty and predictability that I know Mr. Bocheri keeps talking about. But we need to be able to bring that certainty and predictability back to the small business owner so they can move forward, carry on, and with that, increase the revenues and pay down the debt.
Thank you, Mr. Renacci. Mr. Blevins.
Every dollar not taxed is a dollar that's free to flow through the free market system and create business expansion and jobs. We need to stop the reckless spending that is occurring at the federal level and provide certainty for not only the businessmen and women, but for the consumers as well, by extending the Bush tax cuts and capping the capital gains tax at its current rate, and look at reducing those taxes in the near future.
Thank you, Mr. Blevins. Congressman Bocheri.
Well, we stimulate our local economy by making strategic investments, much like what we've done here at ORADC with their plant and animal disease research. Much like what and let me just say, as long as I'm your congressman, I'm going to make sure, brick by brick, we rebuild the Ohio Agriculture Research and Development Center after it was demolished by this tornado. You have that commitment from me tonight. You know, I look out into this audience and I look at folks from all walks of life and all spectrums of life, and you know, we talk about how we get our national debt under control. We put Americans back to work, right? How can the federal government balance its budget when we have 15 million people who can't balance theirs? And when we make investments in our people, rebuilding our roads, our bridges, you know, rebuilding our schools, America is stronger. But I hear that we need to get government out of the way. We need to stop spending. Tell that to the mayor just down the road here who has a wastewater treatment facility that they've been waiting for 10 years. That's money we were able to bring back, taxpayer dollars. It's an investment into our communities. And I hear this talk of uncertainty about what our rates are going to be with our electricity rates. Well, what's not being said and what's not being finished in terms of the sentence that's being said here tonight is that this is a free market approach to our energy dilemma. In fact, we've seen a 10% reduction of energy rates by using the free market. Now, if they would rather put the EPA in charge of doing that with a one-size-fits-all, because that's what the Supreme Court has ordered, then, you know, by far, find us a better solution. But I'll say that if Ronald Reagan believed it was a good free market approach, and if George H. Bush believed it was a free market approach that could curb our energy dilemma, then, you know, maybe we ought to get a good look at it. I don't care if it's a Republican or Democrat idea. If it's a good idea for America that makes America stronger, moves away from our dependence on foreign oil, creates jobs that can't be outsourced, that's a good public policy that I want to embrace.
Thank you.